Greetings, brave adventurers. Today, we are happy to be showcasing the new and improved combat of Story of Many using our tabletop simulator module. For this fight, we have chosen Magver the Sylph Fighter, Fripar Elu the Gerudo Sorcerer, and Kairanes the Necrian Cleric. While exploring the western wing of the Basilica of Count Thal, the party was suddenly ambushed by a band of snarling frogfolk warriors, leaping from the shadows with spears raised. Characters have to roll versus the frogfolk's ambushing trait, meaning that they have to save against the enemy's reflex or become surprised. The fighter's reflex is a red die and succeeds. Sorcerer's is white, but critically explodes twice and is able to succeed. Lastly, the cleric rolls a 0 and becomes surprised. Starting the opener phase, the fighter activates his defensive stance, and then, as an opener action, charges. So he shifts 2 times and attacks Frogfolk Warrior number 1. Rolling a 3 from his weapon plus his strength against the enemy's 2 piercing defense, dealing 1 damage total. The sorcerer casts Elemental Bolt using lightning damage, to which frogfolk are vulnerable. Choosing to spend his rolled zeal on extra damage, and with a total of 7 minus the enemy's reflex of 2, he deals 5 damage, electrocuting the poor frogfolk to a crisp. The cleric does not activate during the opener as he is surprised. Now we roll the d10 and the enemy die to determine the behavior of the enemy. We got a 9 and blank, meaning the frogfolk will perform Bulwark with no extra effects. Since Bulwark is a melee attack, they will each move close to the characters, ending up with 3 of them on zone 1 attacking the fighter. Using the mob rule, we add +1 to the leftmost number of the attack for each extra enemy on the zone. So, the fighter has to roll once versus 5 bludgeoning damage. He rolls his bludgeoning defense. He gets 3 plus 2 zeals and 1 additional zeal from his defensive stance. Using the zeal effects of his armor and shield, he defends for 5, so he takes no damage. The rest of the enemies cannot reach any characters, so they do not attack. At the end of the round, the cleric removes his surprise token. In the second round, we will start with the cleric. He's going to use his 2 actions to shift twice, and as a free action, he uses Bless Weapon on the fighter, upgrading his weapon die by 1 for this round. The sorcerer shifts once and casts Firebolt on Frogfolk 1. Rolling 5 plus 1 zeal. Using the zeal to increase his damage by 1, he gets a total of 6 versus the enemy's reflex, dealing 4 total damage. So, Frogfolk number 1 is now dead. The fighter uses his focus action to gain 1 zeal token, and with his second action, he attacks Frogfolk number 3. He gets a 5, but uses the zeal token to reroll his 0, resulting in another crit and totaling to a 9 plus 1 zeal, which is ignored because of the defensive stance. Then, we minus the 2 piercing defense, resulting in 7 total damage, eliminating yet another enemy. Then we roll for the enemies and get a 10 with +1 modifier. The fighter and the cleric are standing on their zone's rooms, so they're the main target and have to defend with their bludgeoning defense versus 5. 3 from the attack, +1 from the die, and +1 from bolster, as there was one tile with unengaged enemies at the start of the enemy phase. He rolls a 0, but has +1 zeal from his stance, resulting in a 1. So he suffers 4 damage and is then stunned. The cleric rolls a 3, so he suffers 2 damage and is also stunned. At the end of the round, they both move the stun condition from end of next round to end of round. In the third round, they both have to activate and remove the stun condition, immediately ending their round. The sorcerer uses his focus action to gain a zeal token and then instantly uses it to upgrade the dice he's about to roll by 2 categories. So his red plus white becomes red plus blue. It results in a 4 plus 2 zeals, one of which is used to place a -1 bludgeoning defenses token and the other one for 1 extra damage, both of which are zeal effects of his staff. So it's a 5 minus 3 equaling 2 total damage. Then, as a free action, he activates Gravechill Armor, increasing his defenses and grit saves. The enemies then perform their diving attack, which, through the enemy die, becomes a zone attack, hitting all characters that are standing in the same zone, not just the one standing on the rune. The attack would have also allowed them to shift twice, but they won't need to this time. All characters must now roll versus 2 reflex. The fighter fails the save and is hit for 1 damage, becoming afflicted by daze. Since the enemy used a range attack, it also disengages, moving to a connected zone away from its target. The sorcerer's Gravechill Armor does not help with the reflex check, but he successfully rolls a 2. The cleric also rolls a 1, so he suffers 2 damage and is also dazed, before the enemy that hit them also disengages. At the end of the round, both characters move over their conditions. The cleric then uses many wounds on the fighter, restoring 2 HP before he shifts onto the zone with the enemy. The sorcerer shifts once and attacks the frogfolk with his quarterstaff. Two, +1 from the zeal, -1 from its defense, equaling 2, and the enemy dies. The fighter shifts once and attacks with his longsword, but deals no damage, triggering the frogfolk's counterattack. It does 3 damage, but he defends against it with 2, +1 zeal from the defensive stance, taking no damage. On the enemy's turn, the fighter defends versus slashing for 4 damage. Absorbing 3, he suffers the remaining 1. At the end of the round, daze is removed. For our final round, both the sorcerer and the cleric move towards the enemy with 2 shift actions. The fighter focuses, gaining a zeal token, and then attacks. He re-rolls with a zeal token and ends up with a total result of 7. The enemy, with a defense of 2, suffers 5 damage, and finally, the last enemy is dead. At the end of the combat, characters refresh their encounter cards and draw 1 treasure. Treasure ends up being a magic armor. So, we draw 1 card from the armor deck and 1 card from the armor magical properties deck, ending up with a sustaining steel shield. Finally, all characters gain +2 XP each. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much for watching this combat example for Story of Many. We hope that you liked what you saw and that we'll see you in Varda.